Well, hello, everybody. I am Matthew Orr of Wet Ink Games, and this is Other Ink, where I talk to another creator about all the creative ink that they've been putting down on their page. And I am very pleased to be bringing you an interview with Jay Cormier of OffThePageGames, board game designer, board game company publisher, and we're going to talk all about it. Hey, Jay, welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I always like talking about myself.
Well, I have tons of questions about you and how you got started and why you do the things you do the way you do them. And so, yeah, you can talk all about yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love to start with like not so much an origin story, but like what is the
Mm.
because you publish games and rule books and they're like they have bylines on them. And so like when you cast your mind back, what is the first game that you think of when you're like, this game was by someone and here's their name on the rule book?
Oh, interesting.
Like, the games are like a thing that are created by a person, not just like
Yeah.
just out in the universe.
It'd probably be a Knizia game of some one of the Knizia games is when I first because I think I first started realizing when I saw his name and then I saw it again and then I saw it again. I'm like, who
Mm.
is this guy creating all these games? Probably like a modern art somewhere around that era,
Yeah.
um, kind of thing. So yeah, that was that was probably it.
Yeah. I mean, that's right at the beginning of like the Euro games invasion of North America and all that kind of stuff. So, um, yeah. So how much longer between there were you before you started to like make your own games? Like it's
It's funny, not too long after that, Sen, Feng Lim, and I, best buddies, lived pretty close to each other, played games all the time, and I got into Magic the Gathering because of with all this. That was actually the gateway Magic the Gathering got from gameplay, and then all introduced to all these types of games and was fell in love like we all did. And eventually, like any creative people, because Sen and I were actually doing theater. Sen was doing DJing and a cappella group. He was in an a cappella group, so we like performing and being creative and all this stuff. And we said we could do it. We can make our own game. So we started making our own game, and almost immediately we totally failed, and we were terrible at it. And I think this is probably the truth for so many people in any creative endeavor is that you're not good at the thing set out to do, and you set out to do it because you like the thing that you do and you have good taste for the thing you do that you like, and you know what's good. And so when you start to create on your own, it's not good. And
mm,
unfortunately, so many people stop creating at that point because they say, well, I guess I'm not supposed to be a singer, I'm not supposed to be a painter, I'm not supposed to be a game designer. And unfortunately, that's what you must do. You must keep going if you enjoy it, if you enjoy the process. And I did. But we actually did stop creating because we didn't know how to fix it. We didn't know how games worked. And
right.
so it wasn't until I moved away from Toronto area, Canada, all the way to Vancouver, Canada for work purposes that Sen and I decided we need to find a way to stay in touch with each other. So why don't we keep designing board games? This is after a year after that one failed miserably, and we said let's use that as a way to stay in touch with each other because I don't know if you know, but dudes don't just call each other up, every week like, hey, how was your week? What'd you do?
Yeah,
So
it's
this was
much
a
easier to have like a reason to call.
and that was the impetus. That was the start of us then actually creating for real and going through many more versions of games and many different types of games until we finally got something signed a couple of years after that.
What was that one that you did get out there first?
Let me see it. Belfort.
Belfort.
Yeah, that was our
Glo-
first one. I went to. We didn't even know how to get signed. This was back in 2007. There weren't resources online showing us how to do all this stuff like there is nowadays. So we didn't know anything. And so somebody told us you got to go to a convention. And so I looked, and there wasn't one in Las Vegas at the time called Gamma. And so I went to Gamma and cold called booths. Like walked up to booths, like, you guys looking at games? And and the first time I went there, all the games I brought like 6 or 7 games, got interest from a publisher, and they took them home, and they all got rejected. Fine. And then the next year I went again, still because that's all we knew. And it was only because I saw two people setting up a game to prototype to playtest, and I happened to be not busy, and I literally just walked up to them and was like, "You guys looking for another playtester?" And they're like, "Oh, sure, that'd be great." And so I sit down and, "What are you doing here?" "Oh, I'm here pitching games as well." And I showed them my Excel sheets at the time. and here's my games. And they look through them and they go, well, this Belfort looks really neat. Can we play that one after? I'm like, I wasn't thinking about playtesting. I'm like, well, sure. Yeah, whatever. And it wasn't until like near the end of this playtest that I realized, listening to them talk, I'm like, wait a second. These guys aren't the designers of this game. These are the publishers of this game. Like, what's going on here? And so we played Belfort, and they're like, this is great. And they had a couple suggestions, and they took me out to dinner. And then they said, can we play again? I'm like, yeah. And I said, let's try those new rules you said. And they're like, oh, yeah, let's do that. And we tried it. And afterwards, they're like, yeah, can we sign this game? I'm like, yes. So like, it was a really weird happenstance that just
Yeah.
happened. It was Minstrel Games, if you remember them from back in the day.
I yeah, and it is, as somebody who is obviously much smaller, as a publisher myself for Wedding Games, like yeah, people are constantly coming up with like sell sheets or like pitch sheets or like, can I show you my game? And I've got a bag of dice and tokens in this bag that are homemade, and I want to show it to you. And
Mm-hmm.
it is so. I mean, even to this day, right? Is that is still happening, right? And there is such value in that, but like the way it happened for you sounds like such happenstance, and sometimes it is sort of like it seems like lucky of the draw, like you just happened to be there and meeting them, but also it's like you went twice, you got rejected and went back the next year. That's what you started talking about, is like um, the persistence pays off or whatever, but like,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I have a little acronym I say. If we want to succeed as a board game designer and get published, you have to be your own MVP. And by which I
mm,
mean, you need to find different ways to stay motivated. You have to be versatile and create as many different types of games if your goal is to get published. And you have to have positive persistence.
yeah, yeah. I mean, gosh, that's great. And obviously you're you appear from the outside to have benefited from your own advice here, because you've
Yeah.
got like your own. I mean, you've got a lot of titles, and then you've got this like off the page, like, which
Mhm.
is your own company. Like, what led you to that decision point where you're like, okay, I can get a game signed. We've gotten several games signed. Sen and I are a design team. Like, that's how I first knew you, because I met Sen through other projects. And then it was like, oh yeah, my design partner, Jay, and I've heard you on interviews and stuff like that. So Off the Page as a company came later.
Yeah.
So what was the decision of there to like move from just pitching games to like, now I want to publish games,
I hear you. For so long, people would ask us, like, why don't you just be your own publisher? You make way more money, blah, blah, blah. Ha. Side
Yeah.
note, ha ha.
Yeah. Ha ha ha.
But and Sen and I were always like, no, not interested. We just love designing. Like, and whenever we came up with some challenge in our game that wasn't gameplay related but was more production, we were like, let the publisher figure that one out. And that's how it was always their answer to stuff. So then comes mind management, and Matt Kint and Sen and I met at a Gen Con many years ago, and obviously I'm a huge fan of his work. I say obviously from the fact that I have two of his pieces of art that I had
Mm.
purchased prior to meeting him already in my house. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
and he was a fan of us. He had liked a couple of our games, and it was like, wow, cool. And so we ended up playing games together all night at a Gen Con, just at a hotel. Like, it was super awesome. Like, I was so
Yeah.
excited. And he said offhandedly, "Man, it'd be so cool if there was a mind management board game." And Seth and I immediately like, "Could we make that for you?" And he's like, "Would you?" I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "Okay." And like, we shook on it, like, "Thank you." And so off we went. That seems like an easy like thing to do, but lo and behold, it took us 5 years to figure that out, and five absolutely starting from scratch versions of a game.
Mm.
And we learned that in making a game, especially based off an IP, um, that we approached it wrong because we kept approaching it from a what's in the comic, let's make that in the game. And so here's all the characters, here's all the locations, here's the powers, let's make a game. And nothing ever felt like mind management when we played it. It felt like a pandemic ripoff or so, just felt like some other game, and you're just moving pieces. It didn't feel like it. And the thing we learned, especially with an IP, and it can be for not IPs, is identify the emotion and the experience you want your players to have first, and then figure out how to get there through the mechanics. And so when we said, okay, well, paranoia and mistrust and doubt, these is what we want from a psychic espionage, if you're not familiar with the comic. And
Right.
so then when we did that, we thought, well, hidden movement is a very good game that elicits those kind of emotions. And that's when then we found our game once we did that. And then from there, we made a game. Then, didn't take quick, but it was not 5 years. That was only about a year. And Matt liked it. And we pitched it at a convention to a bunch of publishers, and somebody signed it. Yay, we're done. Sit back and relax. 6 months later, that publisher went bankrupt, and they went out of business. We're like, ugh. So we got the rights back. We're on a meeting with Matt. We're like, what do we do now? Do we remember who else liked it? Who got to send it to him again? Who we follow up? And it was Matt who said, why don't we just do it ourselves? I've got graphic design background and obviously the art, so I'll do all that, and you publish it. So, I had to take a time out and think about that. And I knew Sen wouldn't be available to do it because he's got a full-time job as a professor. So I'm like, okay, well, so if it was me, I'm like, okay, well, at the time I had just moved down to part-time at my work. So I had 2 days of not working a week that I could spend to do this. So I'm like, you know what? If ever there was here's something on a platter for you, here's literally one of my probably my favorite comic in the last 20 years was Mind Management. You know what I mean? Like, and here's something you could do. I'm like, let's try it. Let's do it. And so that's what started the reason why I started. And then, so I started this company, and I'm like, well, now I have to have a name, and that, this is the fun part of making companies, coming up with a name and stuff like that. But I don't know about you, but I find a lot of board game publishers, their reason of existing, and maybe their tagline or whatever is pretty generic and pretty forgettable and pretty interchangeable with any other board game publisher.
Right. And so to some extent, names don't really matter. It can be whatever name you come up with,
But I kind of really liked what I was leaning towards was Restoration Games. Even in saying the name out loud, you kind of already have an idea of what they do. They restore old games and make them new games for now. I'm like, that's a great hook to hang your hat on kind of thing.
Yeah.
So my thing was like, well, maybe I'm just going to do comic book games. There was just like because this is a comic book. Maybe that's what I do. So maybe all my games are comic books. I don't have any ins or connections in the comic book world or anything. Just this one.
Just
game.
A fan.
Yeah, just a fan. And then I thought, and I love comics, obviously. And I thought this might be, Mind Management might be the only game I ever make. That might be it. Right. And then I'll go back to just being a freelance designer. And so that's why I came up with OffThePageGames, off the comic book page and onto the table kind of idea. So that was the whole history in a nutshell.
Yeah. And it didn't end up being your only game. You've got several there. And once you were like kind of in the mind of like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And then Mind Management, I mean, there's a work cycle. I'm sure there's at some point it became most of your work on Mind Management was done, and you didn't need to. I mean, you always have to promote it, and you always have to like be following up, but it's not the same as like all the work of like managing the layout and managing the production and managing it into retail and all that kind of stuff, So like at some point you started to like see a little bit more of your 2 days or 3 days were open, and then you're like,
what's next?
What's next? Right. I mean, that's like, I'm sure that was the question, but like, was there another just wave that came in of like, oh, once you've done one, then another comic book creator is bringing you their comic and like, please adapt this, or you're reading comics and you're like, ooh, this could be a mechanic, and you're just already in that mindset.
So yeah, exactly what you're saying. My manager's done, and I'm starting to think, I'm like, well, I guess this is a business now. What am I doing next? And from my perspective, I had a game with a different designer named Shad Miller, and it was called Skirmishes. And we pitched it to a bunch of publishers, and it was a very fairly symmetrical type of gameplay about 3 different maps, and you had to figure out which map you wanted to focus on every turn. And you couldn't focus on more than one. And so, put out this fire. Oh, I got to do this over here. Oh, and I liked the gameplay, and I thought it had a good potential to be a good Kickstarter-y type game. And then I'm thinking, well, now what comic could this be based on? So I'm coming at from backwards this time.
Right.
And I had connection with a guy named Chris Schweitzer, and I like his comics, but I couldn't think of any of his comics that fit with this kind of a combat mechanic or whatever. But I set up a meeting with him. I'm like, hey, I've got this game, and I show him the game. I'm like, I know you don't have any comics based on it, but would you be interested in like, creating a comic set in some sort of world? And we, at the same time, we launched a comic and the game or something, just reaching for straws. And he's like, no, I'm like 5 or 6 comics deep in my backlog of things I have to work on. So I don't really have time for a new comic. He's like, but I'm looking at this, and it feels like this could be maybe set in a Harrow County. I'm like, oh, I hadn't read that one. So I go and give it a read, and it's awesome. Like it's so good. Like, and I not only am I a comic fan, but like I love horror comics. That's my
Mm.
whole background is all horror comics, and this was like, how come I never heard of this? This is so good. So he introduced me to Cullen and Tyler, the creators of Howard County, and I pitched them this guy the idea about this three map system, blah blah blah. And I think they might have. I think they talked to Matt Kint, just said like, "Who is this guy? Is he good?" All this kind of stuff.
Right.
And they said, "Yeah, let's do it." I'm like, "Great." And so from that point on, now I had to start, pouring the theme on. And as we kept pouring the theme on, it became more and more ace because that's how stories are. Not everyone has the same objective in a story. And so everyone had to have different objectives, and it turned into different gameplay styles even. And as it started getting more and more complicated, it was getting really a lot to handle these three maps. Eventually, we just said, let's work on a training mission, like, and make it just one map. And we'll just do one map, and that'll be a lot easier. And we worked on a training mission for like a year, and it got to a point where it was awesome. And then we're like, we got to get back to the three map game. And so we put it back to the three map, and we start playing, and we're like, and it was way too complicated. Like, just that was the whole identity of the game for the longest time.
Yeah.
And then when we went back to it, we're like, this is not the game at all. Like, it's just a one map game. That's the game. Like, and so we got rid of the whole kill your darlings, as they say
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And we re-identified the game, and it's much better for it.
Yeah. And I think having taking the time to kind of discover what the game is something that is, I mean, that's a whole process, obviously. And through playing it a bunch, you kind of find the parts that are singing, and then, like you say, it's sometimes you end up with jettison. Oh man, why can't I say that word today? Jettisoning the original idea, but
It's a follow the fun is one of the key mandates of game design.
yeah, 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 yeah. I've definitely heard that. Probably from you. Um, so we would, I mean, we could go through the whole history of Off the Page, but I won't make you do that. I kind of want to change gears a little bit, and I am familiar with your con strategy, you might call it, just because of knowing Send and having met you at cons, and I'm friends with Chad Nolan, who does a lot of demoing for you, and so it's it, I- so there's like I don't know, like what is the I kind of want to ask you like as a fellow publisher, like what kind of has led to your decision to do it this way? So like you've definitely prioritized as off the page, like the demo space, to
Yeah.
the extent that like even at Gen Con and Origins, you don't have a booth that's your booth at the on the con floor. If you want to meet, if you want to see the game, I mean, you can buy them on the con floor because they're at retail outlets and stuff like that you've partnered with, but there's not an off the page booth. It's instead you've got a demo table and people can play the games
Yeah.
and in the demo area. And many other game companies will have their tape. They'll have both in the retail hall. They'll have, a booth big enough to have a little table, or they'll have a little, that you can demo right there next to the retail, or they'll have a little, what we call this. I mean, the standing rounds, right? The like 4 foot tall, 30-inch top
Yeah.
table, and I mean, but those are for small games usually, not like you've got bigger games. So, I
Yes.
mean, I'm sure there's many things that go into it, but from a business decision, like why put your resources for cons into the demo area instead of the dealer hall area?
Mhm.
Like what,
Yep.
and
Yeah, so I do partner with Surf and Meeple for my sales, and so they bring all my games in and well stocked, and they've played the game, so I know they know how to pitch it and all this kind of stuff. And we partner with them. I put a sign up there saying, "Hey, demo the games over here." I put signs on my table say, "Hey, go buy the games over there." And we have a great. They take a certain percentage, of course, but I could not pay for a booth and furniture and employees to man a booth for and get that kind of return out of that I get out of from them. So it's great. That part is like great. And then all my advertising is come meet us at the demo hall. Come meet us if you want to chat with us or see our games, blah blah blah. Sign up, obviously, because we go into the signups. And so I think that the demos are a valuable resource because I think, people that go to cons, they're not all alpha gamers, meaning, but they're gamers that are going to talk about your game. And so, they're going to lead the crew, lead the group and say, I played this game at Gen Con. This
mm,
was amazing. And again, not all are, but I think more, people that go to cons are,
They're more
those kind of
engaged. They're clearly more
yeah.
into it if they went and that personal expense to go to a con in the first place, you know.
So I believe that getting people to try the game is going to help vocalize them and have them talk about it. Because obviously, and every publisher would say this, but I believe in my games, and I think my games are doing well on Board Game Geek and stuff, so that people like our games, generally speaking. Generally speaking, so I want to get as many people as possible to try and play the games to get that kind of reaction, get people talking online. Here are the top 3 games I played at Gen Con. Like those things are free, advertising, if you will, marketing for a game, or the Kickstarter backers come and then they go back to the Kickstarter and say, "I just got back from Gen Con and played it, and holy cow, this is awesome." That kind of stuff. So it's more from that perspective that I find a lot of value in it. And yeah, I hire staff to come help. We had every hour on the hour, we had all 6 of our games being demoed. So we had 2 long tables of all our games being set up and being demoed all the time, and it was booked. That's another thing. We're in the Gen Con schedule. So I would ask people, how did you hear about our game? Why did you choose this game? And I would say maybe 40% or so around there were like, I was looking for a game. This sounded cool. And that's, I want to check it out. So that's great. That's brand new people. And the rest are people that like, oh, I tried this other game of yours, or I'm a backer or whatever. So maybe it's 40, 50% of people are brand new, and 50 to 60% are people that know us already now and are wanting to experience more of our games and get excited by them.
Yeah. I love to hear the reasons behind it because it's such a different I mean, obviously plenty of the demo hall is full of companies demoing their games, but like
Yeah.
to hear your analysis of why. Related to that, what was it? Oh, the size. Like I think you're not offering party games that you can put out
Yeah.
and kind of get, like I've demoed plenty of games. You walk past, you see a flashy box, you're like, oh, what is this? They show you one round in 5 minutes. You're like, it's a party game. You'll do this for an hour with your friends. I'm like, yeah, I
Yes.
totally get it. I don't need to sit down
Mhm.
and play it, but like I imagine I've not actually played any of your games, but I've seen all the bits. They're very big bit. They're not
Yeah.
simple games. And I know Sen's designs are not from knowing Sen, like he doesn't design party games exactly, So
Well, we
I
do, but
imagine,
I don't publish them. They're like we did design a couple of party games, but yeah, I understand.
but these big boxes like Core Discovery has a lot of moving pieces. Mind
Yes.
Management has a lot of moving pieces. So I imagine I imagine they benefit from getting somebody to sit down and play the whole thing
Yes.
rather than showing you. And then this deck of cards you'll uncover progressively over time. Like you actually sit down and play for 45 minutes or an hour and you get to see that happen.
Yeah, that's my whole ethos to it. So now that said, at PAX Unplugged, we do have a booth, but that is mostly just because I have 2 guys that work for me. One guy's my graphic designer in Argentina, and the other guy is my right hand man who does all everything that I don't do, and he lives in Baltimore. So he drives in for PAX Unplugged. So that's how we're able to do a booth at PAX Unplugged and not have to worry about renting furniture and all the shipping charges and everything like that.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so, gosh, 12. How many, just for like, as I still consider my company to be very much an up and coming sort of company, but like how many, you said you had 12, you had like 2 tables with 6 games each on two, so
Three
that's like
games,
12,
6 games, 6 games.
6 games total, but so
Yeah.
like not, but still
Seven,
that,
seven, 6 at a time, but we had 7. We did Mind Management in the morning and then Harrow County in the afternoon because those are our older games and we wanted to devote more time to our newer games.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we had 7 games, but 6 games being demoed every hour on the hour.
But that's a lot of, how many, I mean, that's at least like 6 staff, I assume, one to
Oh yeah,
demo each game.
yeah, yeah. And I was
So,
trying to not be scheduled to do it because I had meetings and I had to teach at the Game Design Academy as part of Gen Con, and we were filming off site. So I was trying not to be demoing. So yeah, we had to get a lot of staff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's, not, it's the thing, like not it's not free to go to these cons and do all this stuff.
No, no. I still think it's I don't know. I just love it, and I think it's the people. It's just so, and it's when you're a publisher or a designer and you go online, you're going to see positive, negative stuff written about your game, And the negative stuff always sucks or whatever when you read about it. Oh, this game's stupid or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then, but at a convention, it's 100% positive because nobody's
Mm,
going to schedule their time and come up and like, I just want to tell you that I don't like your game. No, they come up and they're like telling you. So the amount of pride you get and the amount of energy you get from that to really is another benefit of this because it just reinvigorates your whole purpose. Like this is
yeah.
great. So many it's people telling me I've never read comics before, and now Big Nama J, you got me reading comics. I'm like, that's also great. Like, what's the next game you're making? Because I want to go read that comic.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. So I mean there's like a thousand other questions I could ask you about like all these things, but like uh I guess thinking about con stuff, like I mean I will definitely co-sign what you just said about the like we had people at Gen Con this past, it's like a week ago when we're recording that we were at Gen Con. But yeah,
Right.
people came up to me and like, oh, this game that you published 5 years ago, I love this game. Please sign my book. Here's my well-loved copy of the book. And it's like I'm so happy to sign your book and make your day as a fan of my game. Like, yeah, like the energy that comes out of that sort of reciprocal process is great. It's fantastic. Um, I never really considered that as like a benefit of going to cons, but it's it's certainly true that like you get to hear the most excited fans
Yeah.
hear from the most excited fans that you're doing that they think you're doing all right. Um,
Yeah.
and then you come home to your office and you're like, oh, am I doing, were they lying to me? I don't know. But that's like your own struggles as a designer or whatever. Um, I I do want to ask you a little bit about like board game, like you've mentioned like kind of like the connections and like and once you know some people, then they can introduce you to other people and like you can kind of spiral on with like, and you've worked with now people who are names in the industry and then you can say, hey, vouch for me or whatever. You were kind of describing that process already. Like I know that when I look at you look at the big numbers, right? Like all entertainment spends this much on all entertainment, right? And most of that is Hollywood movies. And then, like game, like and I like, well, sports betting is even bigger than that, but that's hardly entertainment, right? I mean, I guess some
They,
people entertain there, but like board games are smaller than movies and role-playing games are smaller than board games. And then like small press role-playing games are even smaller than that. And it's like, I guess what I'm asking is like it feels like from that like for me being mostly a board game person and mostly I know like a lot of the other publishers who are my scale or smaller and a few of the people who are publishing role-playing games at a bigger scale. But I feel like board games are just like I don't even know what I don't know about board games. It's such a bigger space and so
Mhm.
many more people involved and so many more fans and the production values are higher and there's a lot of it's just a bigger space. How do you feel about it is from where you are? Because you're kind of the next tier up where you're like in board games, you've got titles, you've worked with people, but you're looking for inspiration from like comics, which are, there's comic book movies in a way that there isn't board game movies, and there's so many more creators in comics. And like, I don't know, I guess, how do you feel about that sort of like where you are and like where you're looking for inspiration and like I guess part of my question is like do you feel the same from your position of been like oh there's still so much more that I don't know or do you feel like you've got a handle on it and you've got your connections and you I don't know
Well,
it's kind of a weird question but like
I get it. I got a couple answers for you. Is that with the kind of comics that I like to turn into board games and the
mhm,
kind of comics I like to read are not the Marvel DC superhero stuff.
right
And so that's to me like the Hollywood side of comic books that are everyone knows those characters. I'm working with comics that have never had any merchandising things assigned to them,
right
so these comic creators are very excited now that we're making cool games for them that and expanding the world so much so that Matt Wagner, the creator of the comic Grendal, which if you don't know comics, it's fair to say that it's a fairly seminal comic in the history of comics and how it impacted the comic world back in the 80s and 90s. He emailed me out of the blue saying, hey, can you turn my comic into, I saw what you did with my Management Hero County. Can you turn mine into a game? And we're like, holy crap, yes, of course, because that's awesome. So I think that to me is, awesome. Now, with regards to, am I still learning? What do I know? All this kind of stuff. Like, I don't know tons. I'm getting to know how to make games. But then I started, I'm a big proponent of, I always want to be learning something. I always want to be pushing myself, challenging myself, all that stuff. And so, a recent thing was my management was a big hit for us. And so I was trying to think of ways to grow that or do something with it, and thought maybe a travel version or something. I want to get my manager to a lower price point so I can maybe get it to more people. Does that make sense? A travel version? And as I went down this path, kind of thinking about it, I'm like, well, the issue is still that we're still limiting our audience because the concepts and themes in that comic are very adult. And so then I started thinking, well, what if it wasn't my management theme, was some other theme and just use mechanics? And then I came up with after a lot of brainstorming, came up with a brand new game called The Seekers, which is our next game that's coming out on Kickstarter. But it was the kind of bones of my management, but reimagined and simplified and streamlined and everything like that. And then I'm like, but I'm feeling a bit disingenuous to my brand identity because it's not based on a comic. And so I thought I'd be a bit cheeky, and I reached out to Chris Schweitzer, who not only, as I mentioned, was somebody I pitched to originally for
The three map game.
Harrow County. What ended up
Yeah,
becoming Harrow
what
County.
became Harrow County.
But he also, we also published a game based on one of his comics called The Creeps, which is coming out later this year. And so I reached out um, um, to Chris and said, "Can you write a comic?" Because he's a very good comic writer for us, and create a comic based on The Seekers. And he did. And we got another artist to do the art for it. And I'm like, this is great. And so I have now this. And as we kind of kept going along and thinking about it, and for some other reasons that I can't talk about now, that are some future reasons, it started becoming feeling still a little disingenuous to say, hey, here's Off the Page Games, here's The Seekers. I know it's not based on it, but here's a comic. It still felt a little, and I was worried that that might tarnish the brand identity of Off the Page Games a little bit, And so what we did is we created a brand new imprint called Off the Page Games Unbound. And this is now going to let us create games that aren't based on comic book IPs. And so this is, again, me starting to learn a whole new thing, trying to find other ways to make games. And so this is exciting for me to, Seekers, which does have a comic based on it, but has nothing to do with the fact that it's because it's not based on a comic. But now we have a way to get games out there that aren't based on comics as well.
Well, and when I was first setting up this interview, one of my questions for you was like, if you love comics so much and you've worked in comics, like how long before you start publishing your own comics? And then I saw your thing about the Seekers, and I'm like, oh, well, it's already happening.
Yeah.
So, do you think you'll do more of that as like I mean, is that a whole other? It's kind of talking before about those kind of layers of the entertainment industry. Like, is there a way to be like a comic book publisher and a board game publisher? Like,
I
or is
don't really
that,
have, I actually don't have interest in it right now. You never say never about anything, always, obviously. But I don't really have interest in, like, even this comic. I'm not trying to. This is a marketing thing. It's not something I'm trying to sell. Sure, we'll offer it as part of the Kickstarter package, a printed version, but right now it's free. There's a few chapters already online on our website, so you can read it for free. So it's more of a nice to have, not a monetary thing.
yeah, yeah. It just, there's one of the companies that is, I consider to be one of the companies that I'm chasing is MythWorks, and their first thing was a comic book, and then they've done role-playing games, and so they are like a comics and role-playing games company because they're making all these lush books. Just some are comic books and some are role-playing games, and
Yeah.
so there's a precedent for straddling two worlds. I just wondered if
Yes.
that
Yeah.
was uh,
Not currently. Yeah.
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 But then the Unbound, I guess that does let you do, like you said, it lets you do whatever you want.
Yeah. Maybe someday in the future we will do a party game. So, because
Yeah.
right now we're doing a party game based on a comic right now.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Nothing springs to mind as like a
Yeah.
simple comic project
Because
that
it feels
would turn
like
into a party
when you have
game.
a comic, you want to give it its what it deserves. And so there were a few times where I had a really cool game. I'm like, oh, they fit in this world, but I'm like, if that's the only game that existed in this comic world, it wouldn't feel right. Like it feels like it deserves a bigger game to honor it, and this is a
Yeah,
side game or something like that. So it's this will let us do some more wacky things, hopefully.
yeah. We're talking about comics, and you mentioned kind of trying to avoid the big two, or not necessarily seeking the big two. Is
There's no
there
interest.
is I mean, if it if somebody comes to you, like whoever, like some
Sure,
person
sure.
from DC comes up and is like, "Hey, there's not a Watchmen comic book, or there's not a Watchmen board game. Like, could you?" I mean, that's a
So,
meeting you would take, I'm sure.
so first and foremost, it 100% has to be a comic I like. I have to live in this comic world for
Mm,
2, 3, 4 years as we make the game, and I have to love it. Like, and I think that shows when people come up to me and say, "Hey, what's your next game?" Because I want to go read the comic. Because so far, all the comics you based games are all awesome. I'm like, yeah, because I love them, and I'm proud to play in these sandboxes that these creators have created, and create a game in that world. So it has to be something I like. So generally, I don't like superheroes. Now you just happen to say Watchmen. If somebody came up to me and asked me to do a Watchmen game, now Watchmen is a great comic, and so that it would be very daunting because that's such a good comic. I have no
well,
idea
and
what the game
it
would
just
be.
has a cultural impact. You know,
Of
it's
course,
the biggest
yeah,
one
yeah.
in some
But
ways.
if somebody came up, somebody actually came up to me and said they had the rights to like a specific Batman story. I think it was called Three Jokers, and they had the rights to that, and said, "Can we want to turn that into a game?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just." Could you imagine like Mind Management, Hero County, Core Discovery, and Batman? It just doesn't. It doesn't vibe. It doesn't fit right. So
Well,
yeah,
Grendel is like a sort of like a Batman-ish
I'm
character.
way
Like,
more sociopathic though. He's okay with killing people.
well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
but not a superhero, which is, and even if he was, it's not that. It's just generally I haven't found much interest in superhero comics. Like I've read some, and I just don't. They click with me. They're not grounded in reality. Whereas Watchmen was grounded in a reality that I could get into.
right. I generally am agree about superheroes if they're not my favorite kinds of comics.
That said, I love the MC. Well, generally speaking, I love the MCU, and I've loved the movies of all these superheroes. So it's kind of weird, but yeah, the comics I couldn't get
Yeah,
into.
comics. Yeah, my favorite comics are other things
Yeah,
than superheroes.
yeah, exactly.
Um,
And I was
uh,
so fortunate to have gone to San Diego Comic Con this year.
mm,
It
yeah,
allowed me the opportunity to meet some new comic creators that I've been dying to partner with. And so it's been I have nothing's been signed or nothing like, but they,
sure.
we chatted about, hey, board games, what do you think? And so there could be some cool partnerships coming up in the
Yeah, I mean
future.
that's another question that I wanted to ask. Is there sort of like a, I mean, they call it a grail game, right? When you're looking
Mm.
for a thing, but is there a property that you, I mean, again, you
I
don't
would
have to
love-
like spill
yeah, yeah.
beans or whatever, but like,
I have zero connection to Ed Brubaker, but boy, would I would love Criminal. I would love to do a game based in the world of setting of Criminal. That'd be amazing. And then who wouldn't want to see a game based on Saga? If you've heard of that comic, like such a
yeah,
great
yeah,
comic. You know,
that's that's
I
in my
know.
queue to read. I've got it on, I
I
got
love,
downloaded versions of
I
it.
love,
I'm gonna
I love
read them.
Jason Aaron as a writer. I don't, but both two of his comics I love a lot. I wouldn't want to make a game on. It's called Scalped. It's an amazing comic, but I just wouldn't want to do a game. I already had issues with Manifest Destiny as a comic. From a, as a comic, it begs you to pick it up and go, how dare you call something Manifest Destiny? What
Yeah,
is
yeah,
this about? And read it. And Core Discovery was originally called Manifest Destiny until me being probably just a white Canadian, not understanding U.S. history. I had no idea what that term meant, honestly. And it was only when we announced, hey, next coming from us is a game called Manifest Destiny. And some people were like, excuse me? What what do you and that's not right, because you can't pick up a game and then get context about the story beats from the comic.
right.
So we had to change it. I had to go to Skybound, who owned the rights to that one, and be like, I cannot make a game called Manifest Destiny. So they agreed with the change of title and just saying set in the world of Manifest Destiny. It says along the
Yeah, yeah.
subtitle. Yeah,
Well, that's cool. Maybe coming soon, you know, from whatever, or you're
yeah,
you'll keep looking. You'll keep meeting people who could introduce you to people or whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'd love Sandman is my favorite comic of all time, but it's just now tainted with the
mm,
reputation of Neil Gaiman, and I'm like, oh, it sucks. Not and again, not that I know what to do with a game set, set in that world. Like
yeah,
that would also be daunting because I love it so much, and it's so varied in its stories and everything that I
right.
have no idea what a game would be like. It feels like it would be hard to do justice to that comic, but again, I wouldn't really want to touch it because of the author, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's definitely been yeah
And I love
set
Warren
set
Ellis.
aside by
I love
a
Warren
lot of
Ellis.
people for
I love
good
Warren Ellis
reasons.
as a writer, and I'd love to do like a planetary or a global frequency would make a great board game. But again, he's got issues as a creator that it's like, well, I don't want to get embroiled up into that and have people, you know, the whole kind of like similar to a J.K. Rowling thing. I just don't, I wouldn't touch that with 10-foot pole, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
regardless of how popular the IP is.
yeah, yeah. That's for real. That's for real. But the good thing is there's lots of comics,
There is lots. There's tons.
and there's more comics coming out all the time.
Yeah,
Um,
not that I have any connection or signed anything, so I'm not announcing anything. But I got to meet with David Peterson from Mouse Guard. That would be an amazing game.
mm,
Stan Sakai from Usagi Yojimbo would be amazing. Jeff Powell from The Goon. Like these are properties that would be fit perfectly along the shelf with these games.
yeah, yeah. Well, good luck on continuing all those
Yeah.
conversations, or whatever. I definitely, yeah, yeah, I can imagine what a Usagi Yojimbo like asymmetric. You could almost do like a. I mean, this is I could imagine a board game, right? Another asymmetric game of like that
Mm-hmm.
world of all the different heroes who are trying to rack up their whatever. They're trying to cut through all the, you know, opposing Ronin or whatever to get to the
Mm-hmm.
place where they want to do their thing first. And if you're in the same space, you can duel, and that is, like a fancy card flip thing or whatever. And I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, all kinds of stuff.
All kinds.
All right. I think we're kind of getting close to the end of time here that we've been recording. I do want to give you a chance to like, is there anything that you are promoting? You mentioned like upcoming Kickstarter earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is your next thing that people should be paying attention to from Off the Page Games?
I'm hoping later this year. Things are printing right now. You never know with printing and shipping and customs
Absolutely.
and ports and everything like that. But we're printing 4 games right now, which is bonkers.
That,
We only
yeah,
had 3 games out, and we're printing 4 right now. One of them is the second edition of Core Discovery, and so that's great. But another one is Core Discovery Duo, which in Core Discovery you're exploring a map cooperatively and trying to find the resources you need using logic deduction rules. Where in Core Discovery Duo you're creating a map cooperatively with your partner. So using logic deduction rules, some are communally known, some only you know. And so you're trying to place tiles to create this map and communicate your logic rules so that your partner doesn't, break any of your rules. It's really, really interesting. Then we have a game called The Creeps. There's of course we're doing. Then we have The Creeps, which is a 2 to 5 player kind of like monster trapping game, we call it. But it's one of these games where, like Scout, where the cards are dual sided with a monster on either side, and you assign it to one of the matching 8 monsters on the board. And at the end of a round, only the 4 that have the most monsters assigned to them are going to score, and you score for whatever's left in your hand. So it's one of these like uneasy alliance games where you want to play cards out to cause something to score, but you'd rather other people support you and play those cards, and you keep them all in your hand so you can score. So that's fun, and it's got these really cool trap cards, and the art style is just really fun and cute, and it's more family based. And then our big launch this year is Grendal, and this is designed by Senfin Lim and Alara Cameron, and this is asymmetry at its finest. Like Grendel is playing a bag building game, and Arjun is playing a pusher luck game, and the police are playing on a rondel, and the mob is playing a dice allocation game. And they're all playing these little mini games when it's their turn in an effort to get units onto the board. And then another cool aspect of the game is it has these 3 towers, one per each zone in New York. And you put these differently weighted plastic aggression tokens, we call them, a 1, 2, or a 3, and the 1 is heavier than the 2 is heavier than the 3. And they get put into these towers because inside the towers is a seesaw. And as you put these tokens in, it starts to weigh it down, and eventually it gets so heavy that this thing it's sitting here, it'll fall, and it triggers a mayhem phase. And you lift it up, and people gain that much aggression that they put into it, and they spend that playing cards and punching each other. And it's so tense, it's so interesting and so unique. And that one I have really high hopes for. It's Tom Vassell from the Dice Tower put it as his #1 game he's looking forward to this year.
Wow.
So it's very exciting, yeah. And then, like you said, we have our Kickstarter for The Seekers, which is launching October 6th. And that's our family kind of hidden movement game that we're trying to introduce hidden movement and deduction to a younger audience or a more approachable, accessible audience. And we're doing
Yeah.
lots of unique things to make it more approachable. And it still has a similar type of gameplay mechanics from Mind Management. It plays in less than an hour and really, really fun.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't played all the games, right? But like, I don't know of a hidden movement, like introduce hidden movement to younger audiences game that exists.
Besides
So,
Scotland Yard, the granddaddy of these, Scotland Yard from back in the
mhm.
day. That's a family-based hidden movement game where one player is moving around and the others are trying to deuce it. But it's a fine game, but it has its limited appeal.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, it's not exactly a friendly theme either, like for younger audiences, I would
That's right. Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so like that's like gap in the market, and then like what can I put myself in the gap in the market is that's always like a business.
And we got little stuffies and stuff, so they're really cute.
Oh,
They have little magnetic tools that they hang on to. Really
and
cute.
does this stuff is this like bonuses or does this come
Yeah.
in? Is this part of the game?
Kickstarter, Kickstarter bonuses. These are part of the expansion. These little tools actually. So that's cute.
So that how do those get used in the game, or are those purely just
It's
extras?
fairly superfluous. You don't 100% need it, but there are these tools, and you draw cards, and the idea is then you would find that tool and put him in his hand, but has no actual function in the game. But
Okay,
it's
okay,
cute.
okay. But yeah, I mean, right. I mean, like, it's a perfect thing for Kickstarter where it's like, wouldn't you like this for, $15 more, or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
Uh, uh, well, I don't know if I'm gonna look at my questions here. I think I asked you pretty much all of the questions that I had to ask you. Is there anything else that you want to talk about like, because we got just a few more minutes in
Yeah.
our hour here. Like, is there anything else that you want to say about, I don't know, like being in the industry and being like your time in the industry, what you've learned from going from pitching games to taking pitches, what you've learned from
I would say that
going to cons. I don't know.
it's been surprising to me how much I've enjoyed being a publisher. And
Mm,
I was, as I said earlier on in this interview, Sen and I had always said we don't want to be a publisher and blah blah. Blah. And always a big fear of when you start to do the thing you love as work,
mm,
and now it's mandatory to do it because now you need to get paid. There's a danger that it could start to get frustrating or taxing or overwhelming or boring because now there's a lot of minutia and stuff that comes along with running a business that isn't creating games. A lot of people, when given the option of like, hey, here's this game I made, what do you want to do? You want to pitch to publish? Do you want to self-publish? I'm going to self-publish. Great. Like, do you want to run a business? Because that's what you're going to be doing. You're not making games, you're running a business. And so all the stuff we just talked about in this whole hour was all the fun side of making games. Everything
right.
we talked about. But there's a lot of other things that aren't as fun. And I was surprised with how much I still enjoyed the process because I was learning, and so everything about, to me, learning is fun. And I don't know how to do this, and I have to get my games safety tested. What's that? And I have to
Mm,
research that, figure that out, and all these like things that aren't glamorous or exciting and stuff like that is exciting. Now, I did that for my management and started doing it for Harrow County. And then I brought in a guy named Joe McNamara, and he's now my right hand man. That's what we call him, our right hand man, which is a slight nod to my management, as that's the name of a character in my management. And he does all the things that lets me focus on some more of the fun stuff. So he does all the customer relations type stuff and the media relations and social media posting and B2B sales. Like, so he's taking everything off my plate, and it's freed me up to do this. And so that's my one tip. If you can grow big enough that you can support somebody, bringing somebody on, and he was part-time for a long time, and now he's full-time, um, to do the things that lets you do the things you like, that's a huge win. And it's been amazing for me to have him on board, to do all that stuff. And it
yeah.
was a weird way we found him. This is a funny story real quick, is that he was a backer for my management and was very engaged in the campaign. And because we had this like secret mission thing, and he was very engaged. And then I put a thing out, hey, Harrow County is our next one. We need playtesters. He signed up tons of times, playtested a bunch. Harrow County launches on Kickstarter, and he's answering questions on the Kickstarter campaign before I have a chance to answer, because he's played it and he knows it inside out.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah, this, yeah, that. And he's going like, this is great. Eventually I just reached out to him. I'm like, can I pay you to do what you're doing right now? He's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you're engaging with our customers and you're answering questions, and I need this and I need this. Are you interested in? He's like, yeah, that'd be great. And so for a couple of years, part time, he just did all this stuff for me, and kind of started redefining and growing what he's doing. And then eventually, I just said it'd be one day in a meeting. I just said it'd be so cool one day, in the future, you get full time, because then we could do this, this, and this. It'd be great. That just be wild. But I kind of just threw it out there as a what if. A week or two later, he comes back to me. He's like, "So what's this about going full time?" I'm like, "What? You're interested?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm not really jiving with my job. I don't like it. This would be awesome." I'm like, "Holy
Right.
crap!" And so yeah, he's been over a year now. He's been full time, and it's been fantastic.
That's great. That's such an ideal situation to like both from both parties, right? To have the ability to pay somebody full time to, like you said, take the stuff off your plate as
Yeah,
because there's certainly enough
that's
you
what
like
I should
creative
call
and
it.
business.
Yeah,
You can do both, but like there's still so much to do, you know.
I interrupted you, but I was trying to make a funny joke that maybe my company should have been called Off Your Plate Games. Maybe.
Well, I'm glad you went back for that. That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah,
But it's yeah. I mean, but to have that moment when you can be like, great, we're gonna hire someone to do
yeah,
this, and like we're gonna keep growing because I'm gonna keep having meetings at San Diego Comic-Con with potential other people to adapt games from, and then you are gonna. Well, I'm there. You're going to be doing the continue the customer service at the level that we want it to be at, and that's fantastic, right? I look forward to feeling like I can bring on an employee that
yeah.
there is my joke as an indie publisher is that like if you ever get an employee, you're not indie anymore, and that's so like that's my definition for myself about like what it is. But like I look forward to feeling like I can do that, you know.
Yes. I do have a tip for those that are listening that are wanting to become a publisher,
Mm,
and it's emulate.
mm,
And I have found that I have made, I'm not even going to say decisions. I guess they are because I did decide to do it, but I leverage the decisions that other people I admire in the industry have already made, and I just copy that.
yeah,
Sometimes it's regards to Kickstarter layout pages. I'm like, I like how they do that. We're doing it this way. Or sometimes it's like, oh, you use them for fulfillment. I'll just use them. You did the research. I trust you. You're big
right,
and blah blah blah. That's what I'm using, and I don't even research it. So sometimes could be to my peril because it's maybe I have unique needs that are different than the person I'm emulating. But generally speaking, that's worked out on a whole for me. As it grow bigger and have my own identity, I have to do my own. I can't just copy. I want to
right.
differentiate and be unique, of course. But for some, minutia type decisions, emulating has been wonderful.
Yeah, I completely agree. I talk about you should always have your peer products for whatever your game you're working on. Like this game is like this game. Let's see how they did it. And then I also it's the same thing for the companies. Like I have my peer companies that I'm like this company is a little bit better doing things. I'm chasing them, and these companies I think I've surpassed now. And you're kind of always shuffling like
Yeah,
who am I looking to comparing myself to? Because, like you said, it's like other people we're all trying to figure it out, and other people have done the work. And if you like, oh, that's the printer you used, great. That your books look great. Like, let me try that printer. Like it is. I mean, and it isn't even like a competition thing because again, like the industry is fairly small and nobody's really stealing. I mean, literally I don't think there are a finite amount of dollars on the table that we're all grabbing for. I think it's like
right.
it is
Growing.
growing and so like everybody can have as many dollars as they can get, and we can all
Agreed.
help each other get there.
I think so too. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Uh, all right. Well, Jay, I really appreciate you talking to me about like business stuff and like your history of the company and like talking about some of the future stuff about off the page games. It's been a real treat to hear from somebody who I don't know. Are you an industry leader? You feel like you are in the industry in a very solid way that sometimes I don't feel like wet ink is. So it's been a pleasure to talk to you and hear about how you do it. So, and I really hope that everyone who's watched this has also benefited from your knowledge.
Thank
Um,
you very much.
I want to hear from you where people can find you. Find Off the Page Games, find you in friend local game store, talk to you on the
Yes.
internet, like if you want to be talked at, where's all that
Yes.
stuff?
Our games are in distribution in every part of the world. So talk to your retailer and they can get us in distribution for game wise. Obviously, you can go to offthepagegames.com and we have our shop there. They can get our games there as well. And then any social media is slash off the page games.
Awesome. Easy,
Yeah.
easy way to find you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to talk to you.
And I want to thank all the viewers for watching, and all the links that Jay just said will be in the description of this video down there. And I don't know, pitch a comic book that you would love to see adapted into a board game in the comments, and
Yeah.
Jay can circle back and see what the populace says about what the games are. So appreciate
Love
you
it.
watching, and we'll see you in the next one.